Okay? When teachers, and I just want to thank you for being here, because when teachers use their teacher voice, all the kids listen, but when teachers use their political voice, all their parents listen. But teachers sometimes are uncomfortable to use their political voice, because it's not what you're trained to do, it's not why you became teachers, to enter the political arena. And it says a lot that you think things have gotten to such a point that you have decided to cross that bridge and to enter the political arena. Teachers are the most powerful advocates for children in North Carolina. When 20,000 of you showed up to the General Assembly on the very first day of session, that set the tone for the entire session. I was so grateful that you all chose to do that you all chose to take time and travel to Raleigh and exit your comfort zone and make a bold, clear political statement on behalf of millions of kids all across the state. It makes an enormous difference. And yes, clearly you're right. And we didn't go over numbers too much, but the numbers are very clear. We pay teachers less than we did 10 years ago, adjusted for inflation, hands down. We have fewer teachers in North Carolina than we did 10 years ago, while we have more children. We are somewhere around 40th in what we pay per capita. As you said, 37th in teacher pay. We're getting crushed by Kentucky. Yeah. We're getting crushed by South Carolina. Georgia. We should not be getting crushed by these states. It was not in the all too distant past when we were highly competitive. As was said several times, the future of our state is going to depend in large part on the future of our public education system and the perception of people who don't live in North Carolina about how strong our public education system is. Do you want to teach in North Carolina? Is going to be a pretty good indicator for, is North Carolina going to be successful in this century? As long as people want to teach here, then probably we got a lot of good stuff going on. We got a lot of teachers leaving. I get emails from teachers that say, I love my kids, I love my school, I've got to go. I just got offered an extra 15 or 20 grand. Mm-hmm. How can you say no to that? Yep. It is within our capacity to meet the challenge. This is not normal. For 20,000 teachers to march on the state legislature, that's not normal. Something strange has to be occurring. So I'm going to defer to my two colleagues, but I'm also going to compliment them, one, for being here, and two, for their advocacy in this space. I mean, you have two people here who I regard personally as strong allies in this battle. And it's sort of easy to stand back and look at the General Assembly as monoliths, right? You've got a blue monolith and a red monolith, but when you actually get to know people, you find out that's not the case. And that's certainly been my experience. It's been one of the most valuable personal learning and educational experiences that I've had in the General Assembly, is to set aside party affiliation and political affiliation when you're having one-on-one conversations, and not to bring into that all of these assumptions. We've got a lot of really strong advocates, and then you've got leadership on top, right, that just sits on everything and makes the real top-line decisions. Ultimately, this is a tax conversation. They will say we're spending all the money that we have on public education, and that is true. But the first move, if you're watching, is an enormous tax cut. And that decision is withheld by the 5 or 6 folks that run the General Assembly at that level, that make the multi-billion-dollar tax cut decisions. And this year, or next year, this January, we're going to have another one. We got a $24 billion budget in North Carolina. About half of that goes to public education. But for tax cuts, we'd have about $27 billion instead of 24. The vast majority of that difference would be going to public education. That's most of our budget. That's why we're here. That's why we have slipped so far down the national rankings in teacher pay and per student spending. This is fundamentally a tax conversation. And that's the one piece of advice that I would give to teachers in their political advocacy, is connect those dots. Because if you grant them that first move on taxes, you're done. The battle is over. You've got to call out that first move that's going to happen this January, again, for the 5th or 6th time in a row. If you don't call out that move, then they're going to say, hey, this pile of money is all we got, and it's all going to you. What would happen to the pile of money on January 1? So that'd be my one piece of advice from a political standpoint. Please connect those dots, because that's the real conversation that we're having here. You got folks on both sides who love teachers, but it's a question of what's number one in North Carolina. Is it support for public education, or is it tax cuts? One of those two has to be number one. If it's support for public education, then we get back to the national average in teacher pay. If it's tax cuts, then we don't. What do you do with the budget? Do you fund public education first, or do you cut taxes first? That's the big political debate that we're having in North Carolina. Y'all would be you have been incredibly helpful in reminding everyone that there are consequences for these decisions. And thank you so much.